Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on FAO Open Forest Tools in Action in Myanmar's National Forest Inventory. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Today's webinar is the latest from the NFO Technical Network, which is a network which regularly organizes webinars on technical topics to do with forestry, and to which you can sign up to receive news about other webinars if you haven't already by simply emailing them. And the email to that network will be put in the chat by my colleague Maria. We are today going to be talking about the role of software innovation in enhancing modern forest inventories, taking a look at the latest innovations that are changing how we access and use data for good, with practical examples from the current forest inventory in Myanmar, which began this year, and we really look forward to updating you on the progress of that during this webinar. It's fantastic to see so many of you online, or almost 100 people. And we're looking forward to interacting with you. Today we will have, first of all, 4 presentations. And I think on screen in a couple of seconds, we will see our panelists, to whom I will introduce you all as we go along. Then after the 4 presentations, we will have a 20-minute question and answer session where we want to hear from you. So in total, the session will last for 1 hour and 15 minutes. A quick word on the format of this Zoom. It's a webinar, so you'll notice that your microphones are muted just to avoid any potential audio problems. However, the session is all about interacting with you, so please don't hesitate to post your questions in the Q&A box below to each of our speakers during their presentations, as you listen to the presentations. And if someone has already posted a question that you're interested in, you can give it a thumbs up in there. You will notice that there is both a Q&A box and a chat. Just to make it easier for us to find and respond to the questions, we do ask you to please keep them in the Q&A box and to reserve the chat box for if you have any technical problems or general comments. And also to let you know, the webinar will be recorded, and we will be sharing the recording on our YouTube channel afterwards, and we will send you the link to that channel via email. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Emily Donegan, and I work for the National Forest Monitoring Team at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, as you all know, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So now that you know who I am, we'd love to know more about you, so please do go ahead and put your name and your affiliation into the chat box. And without further ado, I'd also like to introduce you now to our first speaker, Julian Fox. Julian is team leader of the National Forest Monitoring Team in the FAO Forestry Department. So thanks for being with us here today, Julian, to open the webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Esteemed colleagues, it is my pleasure to convey some opening remarks on behalf of FAO. Over almost 10 years, FAO Forestry Division has been working with member countries and technical partners on free and open source technical solutions under the Open Forest Initiative. The tools and platforms have removed technical barriers, lowered costs, and have catalyzed collaboration for forest data collection, analysis, and reporting. For both field-based assessment, such as National Forest Inventory through Collect Mobile, and Calc, and for remote sensing-based applications through CEPAL, Collect Earth, and Collect Earth Online. Open Forest makes the processes of data collection, analysis, and reporting more accessible, accurate, and transparent, allowing people, communities, and governments to measure, report, manage, make policy, and verify policy impacts more effectively. It is remarkable that Open Forest has been used by 30,000 people across 180 countries, allowing them to create critical forest information in their efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change. One key impact from Open Forests is that it has been used by 70% of the 50 countries that have submitted REDD+ forest reference levels to the UNFCCC. These 50 countries represent 75% of global deforestation, according to FAO's 2020 Global Forest Resource Assessment, which is a huge step forward in the reporting and transparency of global forest data. Of course, none of this would be possible without strong collaboration and support of FAO member countries such as Myanmar. And I would like to acknowledge the government of Myanmar, specifically the Director General of the Forestry Department, Dr. Nini Kyo, the Deputy Director General, Mr. Tin Tun, and our wonderful day-to-day collaborators, Dr. Tuang Nyang U and Dr. Sumon, for the collaboration over many years. Myanmar has taken full ownership of open forest tools and platforms, and this will be presented today. In the true spirit of open source development, the collaboration, feedback, and testing of open forest tools in Myanmar has helped to improve the platforms and tools. We are really proud that these free and open source technical solutions have been adopted by such an important forest country to collect, analyze, and report forest data. And I'm really happy to convey that this collaboration will be strengthened in the coming years with the commencement this year of a full national forest inventory in Myanmar with an innovative human rights-based approach with financial support from the government of Finland. And we'll have a specific webinar on some of these innovative approaches next week, and maybe Maria can put the link in the chat. I would also like to acknowledge our technical partners in Myanmar, the Natural Resources Institute of Finland, LUKE, who have supported the adaptation of open forest tools for national forest inventory in Myanmar. And I would like to acknowledge the key donors that have made this all possible, such as the Government of Finland, UN-RED, Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative, and Germany's International Climate Initiative. On behalf of FAO, we anticipate the continuous strengthening of open forests over the next 10 years in continuous collaboration with key partners such as Myanmar's Forestry Department. Enhancing the transparency and accuracy of forest information over the next 10 years is fundamental to achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. On that note, I pass back to Emily, anticipating a super interesting webinar on FAO's open forest tools in action in Myanmar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Julian, for that introduction to Open Forests. We'll be putting the links to the tools that Julian has just mentioned in the chat for anyone who wants to join the 30,000 people already using the tools. And we will now pass directly to Dr. Tong Nang U, who is Program Director of the National RED Plus Program in Myanmar and Director of the Planning and Statistics Division in the Myanmar Forest Department. Dr. Tong will now give us some opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Tong.
Thank you, Emily. A very good morning and very good afternoon. First and foremost, on behalf of Director General of Forest Department of Myanmar, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to FAO for hosting this meeting and very excellent arrangement. It is really my great honor and pleasure to talk on this event. As you already know, for the Myanmar, it is very necessary to be able to assess the good, reliable, and up-to-date forestry-related data and information in order to ensure that we make the right decision at the right time for the sustainability of the natural resource in the long term. New technologies are opening up and incredible opportunities to collect and analyze forestry-related data and information relevant to the planning and implementation of sustainable forest management, and also for the implementing and reporting, international reporting. So Myanmar is endowed with the rich diversity of habitat types arising largely from its varying topography. On the other hand, there is also increasing demands on natural resources, and it has a great challenge in availability and sustainability. We are now emphasizing the need for coordinated approach to sustainable forest management. Myanmar submitted its intended nationally determined contribution INDC in 2015, and now we are trying to convert INDC to NDC, and we will submit it very soon. In order to implement the climate change mitigation effort and also for the establishment of sustainable forest management, so update and accurate forest cover, forest stock information is very crucial. So we would like to send our deepest appreciation to the Finland government for the financial support and FAO on the project Myanmar National Forest Inventory, NFI National Forest Monitoring and Information System with a human rights-based approach. It is really necessary and very important for our country. I'm very pleased for this project, which will lead to the strengthening of national capacity capabilities to improve forest data collection and information management using the advanced technology and fee inventory. Nowadays, the new technologies are opening up incredible opportunities to collect and analyze forestry-related data and information relevant to the planning and implementation of sustainable forest management and also for the forest monitoring and reporting process. So these open source tools make the process of data collection, analysis, and reporting more accessible, more efficient, and catalyzing the process for robust monitoring and sustainable national forest monitoring system. So with this, I'm very pleased to apply the latest information and communication technology developed under the FAO-led Open Forest initiative. So today, the panelists will share the information how open forest tools have been used in the field data collection, management, and processes and reporting in Myanmar. Thanks to the FAO, actually, our forest department also already had the chance and experiences about the open forest last years by organizing the FAO training. So that's why it is very, very good opportunity for the Myanmar. So I'm very hopeful that all your insight, analytical thinking, and various forms of valuable inputs will make the very fruitful and productive event. I'm also very grateful to FAO and the panelists for the valuable contributions, and also thanks to all the participants, attendance, and your presence today. Once again, I would like to thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tong, for giving us that overview of forest monitoring in Myanmar and highlighting the importance of it for sustainable forest management and as well as climate action. That was great. Thank you. And next up, we hear from Franz Arnold, who is a FAO forestry officer with FAO Myanmar. Great to have you here with us today, Franz. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. Should I share my screen or you have my presentation on your side? I try to share the screen perhaps, huh?
Yeah, if you could share your screen, that would be great.
Okay, why is it here? Can you see it?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily, again, and nice to meet you all through this medium here, online webinar. Next 15 minutes, I will talk to you a little bit about our National Forest Inventory, the scope, how this has been planned, the purpose, and some elements of the progress also. As Julian already has mentioned, we have many actors here, many people, organizations, institutions who helped us to develop this, among which we have, of course, Luke, our Finnish partners. They're very important in this developing the design, the planning approach, but also our colleagues in Rome and in Bangkok, and us, the team here in Myanmar, of course. Okay, so let's look a bit at the objective of our forest imagery, national forest imagery. So the overall idea is to generate estimates at large scale level, so national, state, and region level, or other large area user-defined spatial areas. It's not meant to generate data for forest directly for forest management plans. But in some cases, probably it could also be used for some forest types. In mangroves, for example, we have the idea of also use directly the data from the NFI for the management purposes, but we'll see whether this works out. The other aspect is also that we include all land areas, actually all land areas with forest, and also the land areas outside forest with trees, other wooded land. And in principle, also areas which are not for, where no trees and no forest, so agricultural land or other land types, but there no measurements will take place there, but they will be included in the overall, let's say, the overall data development and results reporting. The idea is also here to develop reliable estimates for key parameters especially for area parameters and volume, because we have to generate data which the country could use then later in results-based reporting. For example, RED+ results-based reporting, very important, is coming up now more and more in the coming years from Green Climate Fund. But obviously also for the traditional reporting and monitoring requirements to international institutions, and also the commitments the country has within the framework of UNFCCC, but also other international policy initiatives. Then what another important element is that we want not just generate information on the state of the forests and tree resources, just the picture in a particular point in time, but also changes over time. So this is expressed then later in the overall design. We'll talk about this later a little bit. But there we have also two additional. It's not normally in the list of objectives of the NFIs, but it's becoming more and more important that we generate approaches and outputs which can be better understood by users and by stakeholders, and that they have confidence also in the approaches we are developing and we are using. We have for that purpose we were looking at credibility of our NFI approaches. So we have the whole process of decision making for design and planning approaches is gone through a very intensive process of stakeholder consultation in the framework of the UN RED program, a national program here in Myanmar. And the final one, and it's been mentioned already and it's expressed in the new project proposal, we have conflict sensitivity. In Myanmar, there are a lot of areas where conflicts of different level and different kinds are going on. So this is something which also needs to be very carefully be considered for the implementation of the NFI. Some features here of the Myanmar NFI, we are developing a nationally consistent grid of sample plots. We use a systematic design, including all land areas of Myanmar. As I mentioned before, we want to allow also for developing time series data. So this requires to have a permanent system, and also partly, this comes later again, partly we have permanent plots, combine permanent with temporary plots. Another aspect is, and this was a specific requirement here from the Forest Department, that we harmonize the NFI plot grid system with the existing grid system of the district level forest inventories. The district forest level inventories are used here for forest management planning purposes. So we try to establish a system which can easily be overlaid with the grid system they have for their management plan inventories. Then another important aspect is that we have the ability for integrating this NFI system with other subnational user-defined large area inventories for productive working cycle areas, protected areas, and another very important aspect will be the jurisdictional RED+ implementation. The reporting cycle will be, the standard reporting cycle would probably be 10 years, but shorter term updating may be possible with projections in between. This has to be seen still how to do this. And another aspect is that we use a simplified and a unified field plot design at national level. So in all forest types, in all land areas, in principle, the same plot design, only minor differences in areas with very difficult movement is very difficult, such as in the mangroves. There we use smaller distance between the plots within the cluster, but in general, all the clusters and the area they are covered, they are the same in all forest types. And we have been using a simplified stratification also across ecological zones in Myanmar. We have 5 here in Myanmar. This where our strata we used for the planning. Other planning considerations, we were using target positions for volume, biomass and carbon density for calculating our overall amount of sample sizes, using different target positions between 5 and 10%. And we used on different scales, made a lot of calculations, national, ecozone level, user-defined levels, and in the end, with the sample size calculation we have, we can be fairly sure that we generate data which are within the range of what is expected for the accuracy required for reporting of NFI results in the context of RED+ or other reporting schemes. But we have also to consider when it comes to sample size calculations, limitations in terms of time, budgets, human resources. Security and access is here very important. We treat them as non-response areas. And also the experience from the last NFI was an NFI which was never fully finished, but a lot of useful experiences were generated at that time, and we were taking those into considerations. So our final sample sizes we have calculated NFI clusters, our candidate number of clusters, roughly 6,000 at national level and distributed over the 5 ecological zones. And we have also we calculated the amount of soil samples we would need in order to generate reliable estimates for soil organic carbon. Soil organic carbon, from our preliminary data we have, they are very considerable sources of carbon, of sequestration of carbon, especially in the mangroves, but also in forest types where we thought it wouldn't be that important, but it is. So soil sampling and sediment sampling is an important element also in the NFI here, with a corresponding amount of samples on permanent plots in that case. Now the sample grid, our overall idea was to make it as simple as possible, but not simpler. Our principle is that. So we have for all in and upland areas a 12-kilometer cluster distance, and for the mangroves we have a 3-kilometer cluster distance here, because in the mangroves the variability is very high, so we needed a higher density of cluster plots. But also for another reason, because there's an upcoming mangrove project where data needs to be generated at the level of district management plans. So we will, from the NFI data in the mangroves, we will hopefully get immediately also the data we need for forest management planning. But overall, the 12-kilometer distance is considered as good enough for our reporting and data accuracy requirements. So the sampling strategy, we have questioned it as a stratified, aligned, systematic sampling design with partial replacement. Nice long name for our sampling strategy. So as I mentioned before, we have roughly 6,000 candidate NFI cluster plots. Around 4,200 will be visited in the field. And we have also defined a subset of permanent clusters on 18% of all the clusters, with emphasis in productive working cycle areas, in permanent forest areas, protected areas, and also some others where we thought permanent plots are needed. And there we had also a higher density of the permanent plots. Here I have on the right hand side the way how we identified the permanent plots is procedure developed by our remote sensing and GIS consultants. Quite nice and quite convincing. So that we have a consistent subset of permanent plots also within our overall grid of NFI plots. So sampling with partial replacement, this is our strategy in Myanmar. The field methodology we have is already fully developed and tested in the field. As mentioned before, we have a very simple plot design with a cluster of 3 plots with an inverse L shape, which resembles the old NFI clusters of the 1980s, but simplified. We have a concentric plot design. We use concentric circular plots with 3 radii according to the diameter classes of the trees. We have 5 basic land classes: forests, other wooded land, other land with trees, and other land without trees, and inland water bodies. But there are sub-classifications also. And we measure 4 carbon pools. So the above ground biomass from trees, and also we measure litter on all the plots, and on permanent plots, additionally climbers, bamboo, deadwood, and soil organic carbon. For the field methodology, our colleague Keinzer, he will talk about this a little bit more in detail, because here's where the open forest tools will come fully into action. The estimation design, of course, we need an estimation design when we develop the reports and the estimates. We have initially established reporting scales at national, state, and regional level. Other policy relevant scales also, as mentioned before, for protected areas, permanent forest estate, and productive working cycle areas. But also, this needs to be further developed, forest estates of ethnic groups. They have a couple of ethnic groups here in Myanmar, the Karen, for example, Kachin. They have a big forest estates under their control. So the idea is that we also develop then reports for those areas and the scales which are of interest for major ethnic groups. The estimators we are using is we have estimators for area calculation. We use ratio estimators for volume, for biomass, height, within strata, means per area unit, and so forth. We have a detailed estimation design for this. We aggregate the estimates over strata. Also, we have tree-level means and also an estimation and calculation procedure for soil organic carbon. Uncertainties and errors will be calculated with standard methods, and we're using different predictive models for timber volume, for biomass, and for carbon content. And this is our next step. So we have finished all the testing and all the piloting. We are now at portas of the full-scale implementation of the NFI field data collection. We'll start out in the non-conflict areas. I have this here on the right-hand side of my slide. We have done conflict-sensitive stratification of land areas with different levels of expected conflict, with a couple of criteria we are using. Will not go into the details of that. This will be subject then of the webinar which Julian has mentioned in his introductory words next week on the 10th of December. So the idea, the planning, we are planning to measure around 1,300 clusters in the upcoming field season, and we'll distribute this into 5 or 6 territorial units. And we plan to train 30 or 35 NFI field crews. As you know, we have COVID restrictions here, and many other countries also. So the feasibility of this, we will still have to check this. The idea is that we somehow incrementally roll out the field data, the field work, so that we can stop, let's say, at every moment when it's necessary. We would start out with a smaller group and then incrementally increase the amount of field crews and areas which will be covered, and can then also hopefully stop at any moment when it's necessary. And the last element, this will be a major work next year and the following year also, is the development of approaches for land areas with conflict potential. We had already some initial discussions and contact with the ethnic groups last year on our NFI approach. The response was very positive. So especially those groups which have their own forest administration and even their own forest policy and their governance mechanisms, we would expect a high level of interest and collaboration with them. But then obviously still we need to discuss all the details of how to develop the field measurements in those areas, and later on the interest they have in terms of generating reports. Maybe we had also some attributes in ethnic ags we have not in all the others. Maybe not. We will check this, but this is a topic, an important topic for the upcoming Finland supported project. And that's the end of my presentation. If you need or you want to have more information, you can reach out to our team leader, MOB team leader, Deputy Director, Dr. Nia Tsumon in the Forest Department. And also, of course, to us, the FAO team. You have the contact details here on the last slide. And we published a paper last year on our approach also. It can be found on the website of the Indian Foresters. Indian Forester, this is I think the oldest tropical forestry journal in the world. It's for those who want to know a little bit more detail about this. Thank you very much. That's the end of my talk.
Thanks a lot, Franz, for guiding us through the scope and progress of the National Forest Inventory in Myanmar and giving us insight into the next steps, and also pretty interesting to hear about how COVID is affecting the plans for that. I just want to respond to two of the questions I've seen in the Q&A box. We will be sharing the recording of this session afterwards, and we'll also share the presentations in a follow-up email. Also, please remember, if you have any questions that anyone wants to ask to Franz or any of our panelists, you can go ahead, and I see some of you've already started, but you can go ahead and write your questions in the Q&A box and we will get around to them. Next, we will turn to Ko Kain Zoi Win and Ufon Tut to learn more about the software that are being used for data collection and management for Myanmar's NFI, National Forest Inventory. Kainen Pon, thank you so much for being here with us today. Over to you both. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon from Myanmar. My name is Kain Win from FAO Myanmar, and I'm working as the national consultant for the forest inventory analysis and NFMS with HRB projects. Today, I'm like to talk to you about how we are using the open forest tool in data collection and data management in Myanmar National Forest Inventory on behalf of our team. So let me start with some information on the Myanmar National Forest Inventory briefly. So as Mr. Arno already mentioned, our the NFI design is based on the hexagon shape and nationally consistent grid system with 3 kilometer, 6 kilometer, 9 kilometer, and 12 kilometer distance. After long discussion and practical reason, the final NFI design have only two basic strata. One is the upland area, another is the mangrove areas. The distance between two clusters is 12 kilometers in upland area and 3 kilometers in mangrove area with higher plot density. So here is the cluster and plot design of the forest inventory. So Myanmar National Forest Inventory have two different cluster design, one for upland and one for mangrove. The basic design of the cluster is the embossed and shaped with 3 plots. And the distance between 2 plots within the cluster is 100 meters in upland area and 50 meters in mangrove areas. So 3 consecutive subplots are located with 6 meter, 12 meter, and 18 meter radius within each plot. So this table show the parameter we collected in the permanent summer plot and temporary summer plots. So three diameter and regeneration data will be collected in both permanent and temporary summer plots. And the additional information like bamboo, climber, tree location, tree height, stem data, soil, lime level, and other information will be collected in permanent summer plot only. So this is the procedure for the forest inventory. So first we have to collect the information from related organization, NGO, CSO, and other stakeholders, and also the experience from other countries. So then the fee manual and methodology will be developed based on the information we had. And the fee implementation will be done by the fee crew according to our fee manual, fee methodology. So regarding the data analysis, collection and analysis in past NFI in Myanmar, the forest department used the paper format for data collection and then enter the data to the into the computer manually in the office for data analysis. Nowadays, the technology is advanced, so we are now using the modern equipment and for data collection and analysis in NFI with the technical support from FAO and LUC. So now I'm like to give you the role of the LUC from Finland in the implementation of the forest inventory. So in order to support the implementation of the Myanmar NFI, so improving the capacity of Myanmar National Forest Inventory, ICMNFI project between Forest Department, University of Forestry and Environment Science, and Lucky we have signed the MOU in 2017. So the main objective of this project is to support the implementation of the NFI and NFMS by building capacity in Forest Department and University of Forestry and Environment Science for long-term sustainability of NFI. So the project is started in 2017 and will be terminated in the end of this year. So now the Forest Department and Lucky are now discussing to extend the project duration until 2021. As I mentioned before, this project is mainly connected to the capacity building. So the training like the Open Forest College, Open Forest Card, and something design, data analysis, and the other training for capacity building to implement the NFI was conducted by the project. And also the experts from the Lucky were contributed and shared their experience to the free crew leader in the data collection project in the fees. This, as you are aware, there is open forest tools, free and open source tool developed by FAO for data collection, analysis, and reporting the results of the natural resource assessment. So collect column mobile and card for the data collection, analysis, and collect art online, and CPO are linked with the remote sensing technology. So now I'm like to explain how we are using the open forest tool in Myanmar National Forest Inventory. The first one is the collect app. So the pre-assessment of our candidate NFI cluster was done by using collect apps. The main criteria for the pre-assessment is defining the land class, land type. So based on the land class and land type, we made the decision about the cluster should be visited or not. For example, if our cluster is falling in the forest land, other land, and other land with tree cover, then we have to visit for free data collection. And we don't need to go out if the cluster is on the other land, like the cropland, settlement, wetland. So we also collect the additional information on the accessibility, travel option, statutory, and the other operational issues if the cluster have to be visited. So otherwise, the open forest collect is mainly used by developing the survey form for pre-assessment and for the free data collection and data management. So actually, the survey form we are using for data collection was initiated by Lucky, and then we modify and revise the survey form based on the experience and the feedback from our free crew after feed testing in 2019 and 2020. So there is one of the validation rule for the tree diameter in our survey form. So the tree diameter range is from 5 centimeter to the less than 200 centimeter. So when we receive the data from the feed crew, then export into the data management and check our feed data. So for example, the feed crew do the collect the land class, land type, forest type, tree diameter, tree height, and all attributes of correctly. We already checked. After checking, analyzing the feed data, so then export the feed data for data analysis and cards. This one is the column mobile, and it's mainly used for the collecting the feed data and then export the collected data to the collect desktop. This photo is the experienced feed crew leader is explaining to the new feed crew leader how to feed the data in the column mobile. And this photo are the feed crew leader are collecting their data using the column mobile. So the last one is the Open Forest card. So this is used for the data analysis and reporting. So as you all know, the card is automatically generate the result for Saku to generate the reports. So then the result table and the figure can be exported from the Saku for other purpose. So Mr. Lowry will explain more detail about the data analysis and using the cards. So, okay, this is end of my presentation, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Kain. Thanks for telling us about how you're using Collector, Collect Mobile, and Calc in your NFI. That's really exciting for us to hear about. Our next speaker is Lauri Vesa, who is our forestry officer responsible for the management and development of Open Foris. And he's going to talk to us today in more detail about the last tool you mentioned, which is Open Forest Calc for NFI data analysis and reporting. Lauri, it's great to have you here with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Emily. I just share my screen. All right, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I will briefly introduce you Open Forest Calc in data processing and reporting in Myanmar National Forest Inventory. And first, just an overview that what we can do with the help of Open Forest Calc. So with Calc, we can do data analysis, data processing, data coming from Open Forest Collect database. So that field data that has been coming from mobile to Collect database, we verify, check all the errors, and then we submit that data to Calc database. And Calc can aggregate the data for reporting. There are many aggregation classes already in the input data, but in Calc we can add more aggregation classes. And the reporting is done with help of a Psycho tool, which is we have a license to use a free Psycho tool for reporting. And the data processing is in this box is that first we import the data from Collect, and then somebody has to write the R scripts for processing this data. But when the R scripts are in place, you simply click on the button and run the calculation and get the result tables, aggregated tables for Psycho, where you start compiling the reports. And the reports table, then you can export easily to Excel or whatever application you are using. And advantage of Calc is that it works like a big aggregation engine. Basically, you could manage doing analysis without Calc, just using R or other tools. But the advantage of Calc comes when we start really creating complicated reports by aggregation of different classes. And about the reported variables, this table shows the main variables on the left side column, where we compute different variables depending on the entity type, and this entity type we call like trees, climbers, bamboo stumps, etc. And these all can be reported, and most of these variables are per hectare basis, or they are for totals for the area of interest. And then we can have some mean estimates like mean height and mean diameter also reported through our R scripts. So, and this set of results, these are biophysical results. We have area results in addition to this table, plus reliability estimates. And for reporting, we always have to look at where do we get our categories. And the field manual is the starting point for reporting as well. So that this colorful table here, it's taken from field manual, and it is like a guidance for us that how we are actually reporting then our results, because we are taking the results across all these categories, plus of course strata, uplands and mangrove strata. Plus these 6 boxes that you see on the right low corner, they are created in calc for reporting those categories that are not coming from our input data, so that we can get more results than our input data could otherwise provide. And this is how it shows in action, that we have created modules, calculation modules, where one box here represents one new result variable or categorical variable. And the calculation chain goes from box to box, module to module, and it computes the R scripts embedded into that module. And finally, all the data goes, all the results go automatically into the database. So calc itself does not show any results. We have to start running a Cycle tool in order to view the results. And this is how Cycle looks like, that it is an easy application where you drag and drop your categories, and then you drag and drop your measures or variables into the rows or columns, and then you can filter it as you wish. And the output is a table or a graph. I personally prefer always table, so that I can get the table visible and then export it for Excel for further processing. And when we have a good query done, we can save it so that we can reuse just the query by its name next time, so that we don't have to every time start playing with the interface of building these queries, but we can have saved repository of saved queries. So this is how it works, and the greatest advantage of using calc really comes up here when we start compiling very complex report tables for our NFI reporting. So thanks. That's a brief overview of calc, and back over to you, Emily.
Thanks so much, Lauri, for giving us a tour of calc. It's been great to see with your presentation and also the presentation before from the Myanmar colleagues from Kainan and Pon what the tools can do, what the tools and how they represent new ways of utilizing forest data and information and how they're actually being applied in country. So thanks a lot to all of our speakers for demonstrating that for us and for letting us see the cutting edge of forest inventory in Myanmar. I think with that, it's now time for the Q&A session. So I've seen there's been quite a lot of activity in the Q&A box. That's great. And we've been trying to respond to them. If you haven't already, please don't hesitate to write your questions in the Q&A box and we'll do our best to get around to them. I've got a few questions myself, and I think I'll ask them in the chronological order in which we had the presentation. So my first question will be to Dr. Tong. Dr. Tong, could you tell us about what is next for Myanmar in terms of forest monitoring? What are the country's aims for 2021 and beyond?
Thank you, Emily, for a very interesting question. Yes, of course, it's quite important the way forward and our plan, how we should proceed the forest monitoring. Actually, as you maybe already know, since around 2013, so we're trying to establish our national forest monitoring system with the support of the UN RED program. Currently, also, we have been implementing UN RED national program from 2016 to 2020 as a phase 1 for RED plus readiness. This period, we prepare action plan on the development of national forest monitoring system, and we are going to start the phase 2 of the RED plus implementation activities. So we are also trying to upgrade our national forest monitoring system with widening scope of the forest monitoring through the inclusion of change detection on existing forests, such as deforestation, forest degradation, and reforestation, etc., etc. Updating of our national forest reference level, and also work on the developing sub-national and traditional forest reference level as well. For example, for the mangroves and Chinle River Basin area, with the support from the different projects, for example, UN RED technical assistance and upcoming GCF project proposal. And above all, the full implementation of NFI with the Finland project named NFI, National Forest Monitoring System, a human rights-based approach, as I mentioned in the opening remarks. So sustainability is very, very important for our forest monitoring system. And that's why we will go step-by-step approach to establish it, to make sure everything. And the later is to apply the advanced technology in the data collection, data analytics, and the reporting by using the FAO developed open source tools. So we are also very planning to apply the innovative approaches to national forest inventory through the conflict sensitivity and the human rights-based approach, which are important consideration the conflict situation in several ethnic areas of the country. So we will try our best with the technical, social, and financial perspective regarding the forest monitoring system. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tong, for answering my question. You mentioned in your answer the work to be done in RED Plus next year. That's really exciting. And you also mentioned the National Forest Inventory. So on that note, my next question is to Franz. Franz, what are the major challenges that are particular to Myanmar in terms of forest inventory? Over to you, Franz.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The particular challenges, there are many challenges, of course. We have quite some of them already covered through the design and planning approach. Yeah, we have as I mentioned this, I think before, that there's quite a wealth of experiences from the old NFI available here in the country. So we try to avoid the errors and mistakes from the past. This I think we have considered this quite well in our overall approach, through reasonable sample sizes, no oversampling, and also a simplified field methodology which can easily be trained and capacity be built on. But then obviously what then comes, our field methodology, which has been tested now in several forest types, we have to implement this at national scale. So many new challenges may arise, and we have to develop approaches to deal with those. For example, in our, as I said at the end, one of the big challenges would be then how to develop suitable approaches for areas in conflict zones. So here in the country, we have several areas where different levels of country exist between full-scale armed conflict, and also simmering conflict from the past, lack of let's say agreement in the way of how forest governance should be organized. So we have many different levels. So they may affect in one or in another way our work at the level of field work, but also later on when it comes to the analysis of the data, producing the reports, the interpretation of the data. All this needs to be done then very carefully, and considering the interests and the concerns then of all relevant stakeholders. And at the moment, we have the problem with COVID, of course. Yeah, we have a lot of restrictions on movement within the country, and how we are able, whether and how we are able to roll out now all this the field work, which would have to start it already, but we cannot start because of the restrictions we have. But there we have to see how we can find approaches which somehow adapt them to the health and sanitary situation. And of course also all the upcoming needs of getting the amount of people trained. Do we find enough people for the amount of good quality field crews we need? We would, with our calculation, we need around between 30 and 40 well-trained field crews. We had good experience with smaller groups, but will we have the same experience with bigger groups? We don't know yet. So there's a lot of practical, operational challenges ahead.
Thanks a lot, Franz, for giving us that explanation. I think I'll give my next question to Kain and Pon, if that's all right. I'm wondering why your team ended up opting to use Open Forest tools rather than alternative software. And I've seen there's a question in the chat, that in the Q&A box, that is along the same lines. So over to you.
Okay, thank you for your this very good question for us. So the main reason is for using the Open Forest tool is free and open source, and also the very easy to use for data collection, analysis, and reporting. Right? So also we have other reason. So in 2017, I think 2017, we went out the fee implementation for final inventory in some district in Myanmar. At the time, we used the Open Forest column mobile and trimmer GPS for data collection to come up which one is the best most suitable for the data collection in the field. So according to the experience and the feedback from the field crew leaders, so the trimmer GPS is the good for the geolocation, for the plot geolocation for the plot location. But for the data analyze for data collection, so the display size of the trimmer GPS is very small, and this is a little difficult to enter the data, and also sometimes the app is aged, and the app is aged, and the field reader need to reopen the app again, and also the trimmer GPS is very expensive. And also, if we use the trimmer GPS, we also need the Pathfinder software for the developing the survey form, and also the export the feed data, export the feed collected data to do for data analysis. So this Pathfinder software is also expensive. So for the column 2, there is a very column mobile. So there is the mobile tablet is very not expensive. It has the reason. So the display size is also the comfortable for the data collection, and also after collecting the data, we can easily export to the free data into the collect desktop for data analysis and data management. But as you know, the GPS accuracy for mobile tablet is limited for plot location. But there is a sustainable error. So compared with the trimmer GPS, so column mobile using the column mobile is most suitable for the data collection, easy to use for data analysis and data collection, and also the analysis. So that's why we decided to use the Open Forest tool for data collection in the analysis in our National Forest Inventory. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kain. Thanks for that really clear explanation. It's really great to hear. My next question is to Lauri. Similar question as to my question to Dr. Tong. What's next for Open Foris, Lauri? What are you working on right now?
Thanks, Emily. So currently, we are working on updating Open Forest tools, and particularly Open Forest Collect requires our attention because we are making a Adobe Flash-free version by the end of this year, and we are currently testing it. And we will have also a new tool coming up next year. It is called Open Forest Arena, and this tool will combine Collect and Calc into a seamless cloud-based application where we can have a same database for data entry and also for processing. And later on, we are incorporating this NFI data tools with CPL so that we can have a data stream between Arena and CPL. In addition, we are building on new R Shiny and Jupyter Notebook application for particular specific tasks to support forest inventory design and some part of the analysis chain. And in Myanmar particular is an important and interesting case for us because we have got very good feedback from them using our tools and shared experience, and that has helped us to update and further improve these tools and functionalities. And I just encourage everyone to test and start using these tools. Thanks. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Lauri. I'm going to ask you another question that's from the Q&A box that's relevant to the last point that you just mentioned about accessibility and ease of use of the tools. It's from Wouter van Goor, and it says, with regards to the calc tool, can someone with no or limited knowledge of R use the tool? Is there something like a basic reporting setup that could be used without the need to write tailor-made R scripts? Over to you, Lauri.
Yeah, that is a challenge that actually somebody has to make the R scripts, and then the using of it is super easy. But the hard part is that how to tailor it for the countries. And we have some templates, but it requires that the data structure follows our template instructions, and then it can be easier to tailor for the country. But basically, there is a kind of step that has to be taken. But we are working on that to make templates also to Arena for this calculation.
Okay, great. Great to hear about the templates that you're developing. I think there's another question here in the Q&A that I'm just seeing for, I think I'll give it to Franz. I see Franz would like to answer this question live. It says, wait, I just lost it. I think it was about community monitoring. Maybe it's been moved. Have you seen this question, Franz?
Yeah, I have seen. I have shortly answered on this also. So community forest. The thing is, there is in Myanmar there exists the figure of community forestry, and there's a community forestry instruction, and there's a policy in the forest department also to promote community forestry. But community monitoring is such that we don't have this considered yet. It's not as in other countries, for example, in Latin America, where you have a lot of experience in Brazil, in Peru, in community, or in Colombia also, and community approaches to forest monitoring. This is not actually not yet developed here in the country, but in the context of what I mentioned before, that for our work in ethnic areas and ethnic community areas, our plan is to involve communities in our work, in the field work, but later on also in the analysis of the results, in the correct interpretation of the results, and with the idea of producing results which are useful then for overall planning and management purposes in all land areas, including the community areas. But how we are going to do this? This is not yet developed. This is part of the project. Yeah. Well, I would expect that some of the ethnic areas, or ethnic community areas, especially in the Karen areas, also in the Kachin in the north, I would expect there's a lot of interest and maybe even a high level of involvement of much more than in other areas in the actual NFI and monitoring work by ethnic people. Karen and the Kachin, they have their own forest administration. They have people with a forestry background also. So I think this would be very likely an interesting area of development for the project. But how this specifically will be developed and turn out, we have to see. But it's a good question. Thank you.
Thanks, Franz, for the answer. Yeah, I think it's something that will be developed in consultation as part of the project, right? And then there's another question here for you again, Franz. It says, will the NFI identify / have natural rubber plantations? Oh no, sorry, it's Hevea / natural rubber plantations, including smallholder family plantations.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Let's say that the sampling frame is the whole country, as I said in my presentation. So we include all land areas, whether they are forest or covered with forest or other wooded land or trees outside forest, or even areas without any trees, although we don't go out and measure there. So rubber plantation in Myanmar, they are considered a non-forest cover. It's an agricultural crop. So we have the rubber plantations, also oil palm plantations, and other type of plantations. So we have this in our land classification as trees outside forest. So this goes into the analysis as such. We will also rubber plantation. They will be measured as if it were any other forest. So we measure there the diameter, the height, all the other attributes which are included in our NFI field methodology as far as they apply to rubber plantations. Also, if we have also rubber plantations within our permanent sample plot net grid of plots. So they will be included, and we will be very curious what comes out of our analysis when we finished all the field data collection. So in short, yes, they are included together with other non-forest tree crop land cover types in the NFI approach. Yes.
Great, thanks, Franz. There's another question here I've seen in the Q&A box from Sheila Zamora. It says it's for the second or third panelist, so maybe Kain, Franz, also Lauri. I think this could go to anyone, maybe Kain. Could you explain a bit about the national capacity building? What efforts exist to ensure that local technicals can update and improve on the medium and long term the NFI in Myanmar?
Okay. Do you want me to answer, or think kind of better you answer? Yeah.
Franz, I think you.
Yeah. No. You can go forward. You.
So for the capacity building. And we already trained the 24 feet crew, 12 feet crew. That means that 24% from the forest department for the feed data collection, and also the some of the from the forest headquarters. So also we are now planning to the and we are now planning to make the training before our feed implementation. So we are now planning to about the 35 feet crew. So for the feed okay, and the Franz.
Yeah, well, this is obviously this is a very important question and a very important area of work. As I said before, this is could be a potential problem to find all well qualified people and train them, maintain them also over time. This is, although I must say I'm rather confident that the Forest Department, they have a very long tradition here in forestry and in forest inventory also, and the Forest Department, practically in every district, in every township, there are forest department people. And from the experience we had now in these 2 piloting seasons we had, 2019, 2020, we had a very good response from the people, from younger foresters in the forest department. So I'm quite confident that we can build up the necessary capacities, necessary human resource also for maintaining the National Forest Inventory as a permanent system in the country, and then for the future of forestry in Myanmar. But it's a challenge, because the problem is that those people, especially the younger people, they go away, they go to do their masters and do a doctorate, and then they move on to other areas, perhaps even other institutions, other agencies. So this is a constant challenge to maintain a good group of well trained, capacitated people in the Forest Department, and also at the local levels, the central level of Forest Department, and at the regional and local levels of the Forest Department. It would also, I would think, within the Forest Research Institute, there's also a Forest Research Institute here in Myanmar. I would need a lot of upgrading and improvement of capacities. We have started this already with the UNWeb program, with a new soil laboratory. There was a very basic soil laboratory which was not suitable, not useful for our purposes. So we have upgraded this already and trained people there to do a proper analysis of soil organic carbon, because, as I said, the soil organic carbon is a very important carbon pool here in Myanmar, in mangroves, but also in other forest types. But the same is true then for other areas. Our idea is to include the University of Forestry here more into the NFI work, in the training, in the capacity building of the lecturers, of the professors there, but also into the curriculum of the students. When this can be achieved, if we can have more, let's say, more power in this sense, and more capacity installed at different levels, then I think the conditions are would be quite good to maintain a permanent NFI system here in the country.
Thanks so much, Kain and Franz, for both responding to that question. I think that's about time now. I'd like to say thank you to all of our speakers and to all of you for interacting in the Q&A box. That was really great. I've learned a lot. I've noticed there are still a few questions in the Q&A box and the chat, but we've hopefully managed to respond to all of them, but the ones that haven't, we will get back to you about that by email. Finally, let me pass the floor over to Becky for her closing remarks. Becky is a forestry officer, the lead on National Forest Inventories in the National Forest Monitoring Team in FAO Forestry. Over to you, Becky.
Thank you very much, Emily. Can you all hear me very well?
Yeah, perfect. Crystal clear.
Great. Thank you again, Emily, for this opportunity to close this session. I think we've all learned a lot about the scope and the progress of the NFI in Myanmar, as well as the software innovation and how it's enhanced modern forest inventories. We're very pleased with the evolution of these open source tools, and they've continually improved over time in terms of user friendliness and general ease of use, And all of this has ultimately meant a lowering of the barriers to collecting and reporting forest data. And in particular, we're very excited about the 2021 rollout of Open Foris Arena, which Lauri talked about, which we think will streamline and make even more user-friendly the entire experience from data entry, cleansing, processing, and reporting. And having all these functions under one roof will make managing forest inventory data even easier. And we think will translate to more and more users developing greater capacity and skills in forest inventory data management, which will contribute to national planning efforts and increased international reporting. So this is coming at a moment where our technical support to national forest inventories has really grown over the last decade, from roughly 15 countries in 2010 to over 25 in 2020. And at a time when we've seen a global increase in NFI capacities at large, with approximately 48 countries reporting NFI source data to FRA in 2010, to an increased total of 102 in 2020. So in other words, there's been a doubling of capacity efforts in NFI in the last 10 years to obtain more up-to-date information on the state of country forests. We see Open Foris as playing a vital role in supporting these upward trends by making data collection, analysis, and reporting less complicated and much more accessible. And we've already seen an increase in global use of Open Foris tools, with roughly 40 countries relying on one or all of the tools therein for various objectives over the last 10 years. And we look forward to continuing to support countries in their field-based measurement endeavors through continued improvement and development of the Open Foris platform. So with that, I'd like to convey our appreciation to the government of Myanmar, and specifically the Forest Department, for the collaboration over many years, which is strengthened by the recent commencement of the project to implement a full national forest inventory with human rights-based approach, with financial support from the government of Finland. Much appreciation also to our technical partners in Myanmar, the Natural Resources Institute of Finland, WUKE. I'd also like to thank our organizers, presenters, and our online audience for your attention and interest today in learning about Open Foris and exciting ongoing developments of the platform and how they can accelerate forest inventory efforts in Myanmar. If you haven't already done so, please visit openforis.org to learn more about the tools discussed in today's session. This webinar has been recorded and will be made available on the FAO YouTube channel. Maria has already put the link to the channel in the chat, and we'll be emailing you all with a link to the recording. I'd like to also remind you to join our webinar next week on December 10th on human rights-based and conflict-sensitive approaches in forestry, cases from Myanmar and Indonesia, by registering at the link that was earlier shared here in the chat. There was also a link that was provided in the chat for more information about the webinar. I thank you all once more, and have a pleasant day, everyone.